Hello and welcome, everybody. I'm Keri Newell, your success specialist and host of Get Your Ship Together, Expert Strategies for Entrepreneurship interview series. You can find out more about what I do by visiting can'tsucceedwithoutit.com. It's truly my honor and privilege to bring this event to you 1 week with 11 experts guiding you into your most successful self. The reason I created this series is I truly believe as an entrepreneur, it's our time to step up and prosper, not just succeed, but providing our services and or product with ease as we reach our target market and our goals. No more struggling, identifying the key components it takes to be a success and what that can mean to you. There are so many aspects of business that we need to comprehend in order to make that happen. And the goal is to work smarter, not harder. I almost said to work harder, not smarter, but that's not the way to go. The goal is to learn to work smarter, not harder. We must master the skills and gain valuable experience in each of these critical areas. We'll never complete the puzzle without all the pieces and the knowledge to bring them together. And I'm so excited today. Our expert is Steve G. Jones. And Steve G. Jones is a clinical hypnotherapist, NLP trainer, life coach, and LOA expert. He is the founder of the American Alliance of Hypnotists, American University of NLP, and the Global Sciences Foundation. Steve is currently working on his doctorate in education at Georgia Southern University. He has created thousands of self-help recordings, programs, and certification courses to empower others. And Tom Mankiewicz, the writer of Superman the movie, says, if you want to make a positive change in your life, Steve G. Jones can make the difference. He did with me. So I can't wait to hear all about our mindset and how this can make such a difference in growing our businesses. Steve G. Jones, welcome.
Well, thank you, Keri Newell. Great to be here.
So I want to hear more about how you got into hypnotherapy and an expert in that field.
Okay. Well, I'll take you back to the early 80s when I was in high school, and I was just a kid who wasn't really into much. I wasn't into sports or academics or even my fellow friends. I was just kind of detached from life, and I was in a military school at that time because I almost failed 9th grade, so my parents sent me to military school for 10th grade and the 11th and 12th. And so there I was in 10th grade, about 1982, and I went to town. We could go to town once or twice a week, and I got a book from the bookstore in town called The Complete Guide to Hypnosis. It was anything but complete. It was by a guy named Leslie Lecron. It was a 150-page paperback, but it was enough to get a young kid started on his path toward learning hypnosis. So I started victimizing my roommates, essentially. I made them do silly things, scratch their nose when I told them to, and all sorts of things under hypnosis. It wasn't long after that before I realized that I could use my powers for good. Instead of making them do silly things, I could help the smart kids study more efficiently, help the athletes exercise more efficiently, and go further. And so soon, in my barracks in the military school at Riverside Military Academy, they were lined up to be hypnotized in my bunk bed. So all these years later, yeah, it was they thought I was doing everything short of leechings up there in the barracks. But so the administration wasn't too happy with it. But all these years later, it's the same thing that I was doing then, empowering people, except now the smart kids are NASA and the athletes are the Dodgers. And in the meantime, I've managed to get all the way through my doctorate in my education.
Wow. It's so impressive. And I've known you for years, and you know, you're so fascinating, you know, what you do and what you teach. I mean, now you're teaching this and you're helping others, you know, help other people as well, which, you know, I love. Yep. Always loving when people help others. So it's very impressive where you've come from and where you are now.
Well, thanks. And it's interesting how one little book that I happened to find, that I happened to pick up and look at, changed my life, and so now I'm happy to help others and to teach others how to help others.
Well, it's a great tool to have for sure. And you were very fortunate because you found something very early on. I know a lot of people struggle with, you know, what they're going to do. So you've really stuck with this for a long time, and that is very respectable. I love that.
Well, thanks. My stepmom says she wants to be me when she grows up.
There we go. Well, that's a nice compliment, right?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Well, I'm going to start in with some questions. What impact does a negative mindset have on someone's ability to succeed?
Well, it has everything to do with it. As Henry Ford said, the founder of Ford Motor Company, said, if you think you can do something, he said it like this: whether you think you can do something or you don't think you can do something, you're right. So whether you believe it or not, you're right. That's a paraphrase of what he said, but essentially he's saying whatever you think is going to happen is going to happen. If you think you're going to be successful, you're going to be successful. If you think you're not, then your thoughts are already getting in your way. So this negative mindset impacts everything to the degree that sometimes things never even get started. Sometimes the plant never even starts to grow into a tree. It never gets planted in the first place because you just nip it right away before you even start because you talk yourself out of it. And we convince ourselves that we're right and we've got logical reasons and we know what we're talking about when we say this isn't going to work. But that's all a negative mindset, and it has the impact of destroying our dreams.
And I know that mindset is a huge piece. I know it's been that for me. And I know that as an entrepreneur, I have a tendency to go up and down. I can get really excited about something, and I can go after it. And sometimes if it doesn't produce fast enough for me, I have a tendency to give up on it or I get frustrated with it. And I know that if I don't have a healthy mindset and I don't have a positive mindset, I'm not able to move forward. So I know that that's a huge piece. And I know that there's a lot of people out there in business that have the know-how to do their business and they, find out all about online marketing or, there's so many pieces that go with this, with being successful in business. But if you're missing the mindset, you're really not going to get to be where you want to be. You might have small successes, but I know how important it is. So we have positive and negative mindset. Talk about the positive mindset.
Well,
what can that launch us
What's that?
to do? What can that launch us to do?
Well, it can launch us to do anything. I remember when I was starting out in the online world, I've been practicing hypnotherapy since about 1985. That's when I graduated high school and just started right away. Then I, of course, followed up with my academic degrees from the University of Florida and studying at Harvard and so forth. But I started right away practicing hypnotherapy. And in about the year 2000, I started the online part of my business. And at that time, I knew a lot of other hypnotherapists who were also doing other things. They weren't full-time hypnotherapists. They were doing other things. In fact, the mindset of that time was that, when I was talking to these people, was that you're not able to, you can't. They would say you can't. And hypnotherapists saying this, positive people saying this, you can't be a full-time hypnotherapist. You must have another job, and it's sort of a supplement to your income. Well, I knew that wasn't the case, and I also was hearing them say that the online world isn't going anywhere, and if you produce recordings on MP3s, someone's just going to rip them off, which they do all the time. But it doesn't affect me financially. In fact, I think that kind of thing helps because it spreads the word about hypnotherapy when people rip something off and they share it with someone else. So that's all the negative thinking that I was hearing at that time. If I had listened to it, I never would have ventured into the online world. I would have kept things as a bricks-and-mortar business and just gone that way. And the online world has, of course, made all the difference in my financial success and my ability to help the world. So the impact that a positive mindset has on someone's ability to succeed is everything. And you just have to ignore what you're hearing and focus on what you believe in your heart to be true. Even if you're not able to see the path, you just have to believe that it's going to unfold as you continue walking forward. That's why I always give advice to people. If people get on my Facebook fan page and they say they did something great and they just want to share it with me, I always say the same thing. I always say, keep moving forward, ! Because that is the positive mindset in action, and that starts us on the path and continues us moving forward toward our goal.
Absolutely. Can you give us some, for me, with everything that's going on in our in our country and with the economy and how things are so crazy, I like to keep up on the news, but I also know there's a lot of people out there that watch the news every single day, and it's really impacted their mindset. So people are saying, you know, in this economy you can't do this, or in this economy you can't do that. And so I watch people kind of stop moving forward, like you're talking about. You know, what are your thoughts on people keeping up on the news? You know, usually the news is pretty negative. It gets a lot of attention for that. There's a lot of negative things going on. What do you recommend? I mean, should people not watch the news? Should we just get a little update on our computer every day of what's happening? Or how do we kind of shield ourselves, keep ourselves strong?
It really depends on the type of news that you watch. One of the things I've published 23 books now, and the most recent one is coming out soon. And the publisher said to me, there's a new ball game now, and getting a buzz going for your book. And one of the things that we'd like to see you do is to go and look at news articles every day. You can do this on your iPhone with apps, and find an article you like and click that you like it, and so it'll post to your Facebook, and then you can say something about that, because people like to see that. They like to, people who are going to do a news story about you like to see that you're interested in the news. So I was in this conference call with the publisher, and I got on my iPhone, I looked, and I got this app I downloaded that they recommended, and I looked through it, and all of it was crap. It was just a bunch of crap news that I had no interest in whatsoever. Death and everything just short of plague, and people losing their jobs, and just all kinds of negative things. Real things. I'm not going to deny that it's reality, because it was reality. It is reality. But the things that they were presenting were negative things that I would not want to focus on. So I had to get a different app. I had to find an app that actually shows things that I'm interested in, which are science and technology. When I was a kid, my dad used to cut out things about the Apollo missions and the missions in space and leave them for me to read. And those are the kinds of things that I read as a kid. That's the kind of news I was exposed to. And that's still the kind of news I like, science and technology news, because it's so positive. It's forward-moving. It's forward-thinking. It's like the explorers of the old world on ships, but now we're doing it in space, and hopefully we'll ramp that up again. But it's all a matter of focus. It's a matter of what you focus on. So rather than eliminating your access to news, I suggest focusing on certain things. I watch stocks that I think are exciting, even if I'm not investing in them. When I see Apple hitting $600 a share and being projected to go to $900 a share, I get excited. I get excited because that speaks to me about the legacy that Steve Jobs left and the technology that's being developed that's going to revolutionize the world. It's going to help us. So I get excited about that. But if I looked at the TV for my news and I focused on that, I would be very upset. And if I looked at this app that was recommended by the publisher, I would be very upset, because it just shows a lot of negative things. Because unfortunately, that's what people feed off of. They like to feel negative sometimes. They like to tap into that and feed that negative flame within them that the media has developed. And I want to recommend not going under a rock and being oblivious to what's going on, but getting a little bit of that. And I get it from my email. My Yahoo email gives me a little bit of news, and so I can see if anything major is going on. But I can read it at my discretion. I don't have to read too much or see graphic shots if I don't want to. And then I look for things that are positive. Everybody has to find their own positive in the world, but for me, it's science and technology. It's businesses that are doing well, space exploration. Those are the kinds of things that. And nowadays we have to look at China and India for space exploration, unfortunately, but because America's kind of cut back. But still, I'm optimistic for those countries for China to go to the moon, like they said they're going to. Things like that. So you can always find something positive to focus on, and you may think, well, what is that going to do for me? What that's going to do for you, for anyone, is to get you in that positive mindset, realizing that the sky is not falling. We're not all crumbling here and deteriorating. Things are actually looking up. There's still people and countries that are moving forward. There's still a lot of optimism in the world, and I can bring that down to my life, and I can say, okay, it's worth getting up today. It's worth moving forward. There are a lot of people doing good, positive, powerful things in the world. I want to be one of them. How can I contribute?
Well, I love what you said. I had stopped watching the news altogether, and basically I had no idea what was going on anywhere because I wanted to stay positive and stay focused, and I didn't want to hear all of these horror stories that were going on about, like you said, people losing their jobs. And this is right when our economy really took a hit. And then I had a friend of mine who was in another state, call me and ask me if the fires that were going on were near my home. Well, I didn't even know there was fires going on, so I felt there's got to be a better way, right? It's not just burying my head in the sand. So I like what you said. You can pick and choose and maybe, see what's going on locally online by just browsing. I want to know if there's, an earthquake that's happened. I live in California, so, we have fires and earthquakes and mudslides and all of those things, and I want to know what's going on, and then you can specifically go in and, if you have an interest, hear about what's going on with that. So that's actually a really great idea.
Yeah, I think it works. I remember when I lived in California, my parents called me one day and they said, are you okay? And I said, what do you mean, am I okay? They said, well, did the hailstorm wipe you out? And I said, what hailstorm? And they said, we saw it on TV. California's being pummeled by hail. Don't try to downplay it. We know what's going on. And what had happened, I did some research on this, and what had happened was it was actually in Compton, and it was for about 5 minutes, and there was some good-sized hail. There were some people who got caught off guard. They were outside, and they were just kind of running around for 5 minutes screaming while they were getting hit by these hail balls, which nobody got seriously injured. The news managed to capture that 5 minutes in Compton where we've got people running around being, it looks like the sky is falling, and it looks like it's going to go on forever. The news, of course, played it up to make it seem like it's widespread and it's going on for, a long period of time. And so people who watched it, and I consider my parents to be, intelligent people, they watched it and they thought that all of California was under siege from a hailstorm.
Right. Well, the news does do that. That's, it's their job to make it exciting or, play it up more than it is, which is why it's even more important not to be feeding that into your mind, especially right before you go to bed. I mean, my goodness.
Right, exactly. Yep.
So how can people change their mindset from a negative mindset to a positive mindset?
Well, that is a matter of changing a lot of habits, a lot of these, negative habits that we develop, getting off of our quote-unquote addiction to the TV and to negativity. Misery loves company, so if we're feeling not so good, we'll look for some other people on TV who are not feeling so good so we can relate to them. If we're not feeling so good, we would listen to a song perhaps of someone suffering and think, oh, good, someone's suffering just like me. I can relate to that. But that just kind of feeds the flame of all kinds of things, apathy, sadness, potentially, eventually depression, and it really just furthers us down that road. So the way to get out of that is just by changing. The main thing to do is just change your habits, and sometimes we have to change who we're associating with. Sometimes if we talk to people and they're always, the Debbie Downer, and that's all they want to talk about would be negative things because that's their form of therapy. They use perhaps you, meaning anyone listening, as a therapist, and they just want to dump everything on you because that's just the way they do things. You probably need to detach yourself from that. But more importantly, you need to ask yourself why you were associating with that in the first place, why you were listening to that, why you were just sitting there and taking it. There's a fine line between being a good friend and being a doormat, being someone who just takes all this abuse from someone all the time in the form of negativity. So we need to cut ourselves off from that. We need to start looking at it like smoking and secondhand smoke. We wouldn't want to be exposed, or we shouldn't want to be exposed to that, just like we shouldn't want to be exposed to the negative thoughts and feelings of others. That doesn't mean that we won't lend a helping hand when people need it. That doesn't mean that we don't listen to people at all. That means that we do it in a more appropriate way. Rather than getting in the ditch with them, we reach our hand in from the top with our 2 feet planted firmly on the surface, and we pull them out if we're going to be helpers. So there's a huge difference between commiserating with someone to the degree of getting down with them and feeling that that's what you must do because they're suffering, you must suffer, or doing that to someone else as opposed to keeping ourselves emotionally stable and always looking for ways to improve that. So that's a major one, looking for those opportunities in our lives and really getting even deeper than that and figuring out why we were attracted to that in the first place. That's really going to allow us to make the distinctions which allow us to make the long-term changes.
So this is kind of a tough one, but, I understand how, when someone is negative and we've decided we're going to make a shift and we want to be more positive and we spend less time with that person, when we know that when we're positive, we're also very magnetic. So it's really important to be upbeat and positive and happy, because if you're in business, you're going to attract business, you're going to attract like-minded people. But what if it's someone in your family? Do you have any suggestions for that? I mean, what if you're married to someone who lost their job and they're just like the economy and this and that and they're trying everything and, that just seems like such a tough situation to be in. You can be, Debbie upbeat all the time. Do you have any suggestions for that? More of therapy as opposed to hypnotherapy?
that could be more long-term stuff. I think that you have to play it by ear. Every situation is individual. Naturally, if someone became sick with some disease and they've been married to their partner for 30 years, you expect the partner to hang around, not to just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, that's negative. I've got to disassociate from negativity. I'm leaving now."
Right.
That's clearly not what I'm talking about, and I'm not advocating that in any way. Family is family. You're stuck with them for better or worse, so you make the most of it. But you can, and if you're married to this person, you're living with them and sleeping in the same bed, then that becomes a bit of a challenge. But at some point, you may want to, not you personally, but the listeners, if they're in that situation, may want to reevaluate. Sometimes we make decisions at one point in our lives which are not appropriate for other points in our lives. We sometimes grow apart from people, or sometimes we grow apart, but it's kind of like the Pina Colada song from the 70s, where the couple had grown apart. They both place ads on singles in singles newspapers and in the ad section of newspapers in the singles section, and they meet, and it's each other. They thought they were meeting different people. They're meeting each other, and they found out they have the same desires and so forth, and they didn't even know it because they stopped communicating a while back. So sometimes it's just a matter of getting reacquainted with the person you're with. Sometimes people just go through things. I mean, if someone gets laid off from a job, then, and it's not their fault, then it's really not their fault. It's not that they're a negative person. It's just that they're going through a hard time. So there's so many variables in that equation that it would be difficult to just give one blanket answer.
I was just thinking something that someone could do if they have a spouse in their home that's experiencing a lot of, spewing out a lot of negativity. I have a family member that I will remain unnamed. However, he views the world very much as the glass being half empty, and I view the world very much as being half full. So that's always a challenge, and I know that he sees it as keeping it real, and I wonder how he gets out of bed every day, and it's just, so I try to talk about the weather. Sometimes the weather's bad, but, I live in Los Angeles, and it's not too bad. It's, it's pretty good here, but I'm able to steer the conversation so that we can stay away from some of that negative stuff, and sometimes when it comes up, I have to go.
I hear you. So you want an actual item, something that can be done in this situation, is that right?
Yeah, it's yeah.
Sure. Well, I'll be glad to help. My dad, he was alive during the Compton, when Compton was being bombarded by, when all of California was being attacked by ice from the heavens. He was alive during that time, during the story I told you from 2002. Since then, he's passed away, unfortunately. He got to about 78 and passed away a few years back. But he was, for the most part, a pretty upbeat guy. But occasionally, and I would talk to him every weekend, occasionally he would be a bit of a downer because he didn't really accomplish the things that he wanted to in his life to the full degree that he wanted to. That's why he always pushed college on me, go to college. Now I've got a doctorate, so he would have been very proud of that. But that was one of the things that he felt that was very important, and I happened to agree. However, sometimes in our weekly conversations, he lived in Florida. Once I moved to California, we'd talk once a week on the phone. Sometimes he would really bring me down. I was working on something, and he would say, "Oh, well, that's not going to work out. Why don't you move back here?" Or not, he didn't want me living with him, but he wanted me back in Florida. He thought it was ridiculous that I ever moved from Florida after I graduated from the University of Florida. So he would constantly bombard me with these things sometimes. And when he did it, he would do it, pretty forcefully, verbally. And I had to figure out a way to deal with that. So what I found worked for me was programming myself, and that's where I used hypnosis. I programmed myself. I would make recordings for myself that I would listen to at night that would program me to be positive no matter what, because I figured that I could kind of use him as a great test case, because he was such it's my father, so you always respect and love, and you're not going to totally ignore your father, but he, at the same time, since he had this access to me, he could get in these little jabs, and I thought, well, I got to do something about this. So I would make a recording for myself, and I would redo it every now and then. That programmed me to think positively no matter what, and to just understand that sometimes people, when they talk, are dealing with their own anxiety, their own issues, and it has nothing to do with you, nothing to do with reality or your future potential. It has everything to do with just what's in their head. And so by programming myself, listening to this every night, I was able to not really laugh it off, but it kind of rolled off like like water off a duck's back. So I would talk to him and I'd say, okay, Dad, great point. Yep, that's true. You're absolutely, I understand. I hear you. I was able to say things like that, and at the same time stay emotionally detached, because I was able to realize that that's just how he felt. So you have to detach yourself, and if you're unable to do it, which I was at the time unable to do it, if you're unable to do it without programming yourself, and all you have to do is make a hypnosis recording. Of course, I'm going to say that as a hypnotherapist. Make a hypnosis recording and listen to it at night, every night for 21 nights, to change your pattern of thinking and interacting with the world.
Wow. Yeah, I really see a big difference when I'm able to have conversations with people that are positive, and I know that when the negative ones come out, I mean, not only do I want to steer clear when it's related to business or my business success or where I'm going, but being around people that lift me up only helps me stay in that positive space all the time.
Absolutely.
It's really powerful. So
what?
I know I call them cheerleaders. I have some cheerleaders on my team. They're friends of mine, and when I need cheering up or I'm, discouraged or frustrated, I call them up and they cheer for me.
I think that's wonderful.
It's really nice.
I think, going a little deeper than that, you would think that everyone would be in perfect shape, because we've got vegetables available to everyone, fruit available to everyone. No one's making anyone eat fast foods or processed foods or foods high in saturated fats, so why isn't everyone in perfect shape? It's kind of like, why isn't everyone calling their cheerleaders and building themselves up? Because some people either don't want that for some vested reason they have in being miserable, or they feel they're not worthy of it. So to take it a layer deeper, you have to prepare yourself to accept good things first. And you have to do this by giving yourself permission to have good things in your life. Once you do that, once you start to do that and you become comfortable with them and you realize it's okay and you're not taking away from other people by doing that, then you get comfortable with more good things. And so you're able to open yourself up to your cheerleaders and good food, good meaning food that empowers you rather than brings you down and makes your body what you don't want it to be. So you're able to change your life by first changing the way you think about yourself. But that all starts with figuring out, taking some quiet time, some meditative time, and figuring out why you either feel unworthy or you enjoy being miserable.
Very powerful. That is a layer deeper, isn't it?
It is. Onion.
Deep. So can you give us specific steps to people can take to change their mindset? I know you might have already started in on that. I think, preparing to accept good things is huge, for sure. Yeah,
I think one of the things I mentioned in one of the books that I wrote about the law of attraction is that there are just a few steps you can take in that, and one of the steps being that you need to figure out what you don't want. Figure that out first. And by the way, this particular book I'm mentioning I co-wrote with my co-author Frank Mangano. I always give credit where credit's due. But what we came up with was a few steps, and one of the steps is figure out what you don't want. There are things that you don't want. Get them on the table. What are you fed up with? What is it that you're no longer willing to tolerate, whether it's weight or poverty or loneliness or whatever it is? What are you not willing to accept anymore? And then the next actionable item is to figure out what you do want. And that becomes easy. You figure out what you don't want. Now you can see clearly what you do want. You write that down. You get clear on it. And then you ask for it. Now, this starts to sound a little hokey at this point because some people say, well, yeah, if I could just ask for it and get it, I'd ask for $1 million, and I did that last week and it didn't show up. Well, you need to realize that there's a process in the universe. And beyond this being some metaphysical concept, this is actually programming your subconscious mind for success. Like the story about Jim Carrey writing $1 million check to himself, or maybe it was $10 million. He wrote it to himself, and a few years later he actually received that amount of money because he believed in it. That kind of thing works. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and what you tell it and what it hears. So you tell it reality, and it becomes reality in your mind. So you tell yourself that you're going to get this thing, whatever it is, money or happiness or weight loss or whatever it is, and you're going to get it because your subconscious mind is going to find a way to make it happen. Plus, the law of attraction kicks in and brings back to you what you start putting out. In this case, a positive mindset. It's going to come back to you. So you ask for it, you believe that you're going to get it, and you accept it. You accept it, and you're grateful for it. Just to move us ahead a few steps, these are all the steps that you need to take in order to make it happen. And although it sounds simple, and sometimes too simple to be true, it's actually taking advantage of two fundamental universal laws, as I consider them. One is that your subconscious mind accepts what you say, and if you say it enough, it's going to believe it and make it happen. Two is the law of attraction, that you get what you put out into the world.
Wow. Can you repeat, I have figure out what you don't want, then figure out what you do want, ask for it, and is the next one accept it?
Yes. Ask for it, then accept it, and then be thankful for it.
Thankful for it. That's a really good one.
And that's the key one. You have to be thankful for it. We're talking about a cycle of abundance. In the 90s and in the early thousands, we called it abundance, and The Secret came out. We started calling it the law of attraction. In the 80s, we called it thinking positively. So it's had a bunch of different names over the last few years. However, it all comes down to the same thing, the cycle of abundance. You have to get something, and you have to be thankful for it. Part of being thankful for it also includes giving back a little bit. Christians would call this tithing, giving a tenth, or giving whatever percentage you think you should. But it doesn't have to be to the church in this case. It can be to other people. It's just a matter of getting the abundance flowing. It shows your subconscious mind that you're not on a desert island with limited supplies, having to hoard everything that you get. You are giving back part of it because you know that more is going to come to you.
I love that. I really, really do. Can you give us some examples of where this has happened for people?
Oh, sure. I have examples all the time in my practice. These days, since I raised my rates a little bit, I usually deal with people who want to make more money. And so sometimes I get people who come to me, or I have a session with them on the phone, or sometimes I go to them, and I'll just take an example in particular of someone I'll call Bill. We'll change the names of the innocent.
Right.
Bill came to me, and I actually went to him in California because he scheduled an appointment when I was doing a seminar there, and he literally scraped together my fee. I didn't know this at the time, but that's almost all the money he had to pay for me to work with him one-on-one. And the session is only 2 hours long when I work with someone, and if I do a follow-up, it's only 1 hour. And so he really didn't have anything, and he was literally betting his last dollar on me and the process that he would go through with me. So Bill and I worked together for only 2 hours. That's the total amount of time we spent together. And half of the session is just me talking to Bill, getting to know him and getting to know what he wants me to do for him. The other half of the session is a hypnotherapy session, since I do hypnotherapy. And that's not important because that's just the mechanism. What is important is what we worked on and how Bill's mind processed it. Bill had a severe poverty complex. He didn't think he was worthy of anything. He had plenty of opportunities. He had just a typical story of someone who didn't believe in himself. He had plenty of opportunities, came from a decent family. It's not as if he grew up, in the projects or anything. He had everything going for him, but he just didn't feel worthy of anything because, in at least the way he reasoned it out, because of his upbringing. He was always told that rich people are bad and that they're evil, and if you're rich, you're going to be evil. And he had an example of a cousin of his who was the head of some company, and he stole from people and so forth. So he had all these ideas about wealth not being good and rich people being bad. So he was working against himself. He would sabotage himself at every turn. Every chance he got to mess something up, he would, because his subconscious mind had a thermostat that said, you are worth X amount of money, and his thermostat was set really low. And if he got above that amount of money in the bank, he would find a way to get rid of it. In fact, he told me, after I worked with him, which I didn't know at the time, that when he was paying me, it was just his subconscious acting out, trying to get rid of that money. He thought that it wasn't going to work out. He thought he was flushing that money. And so he thought that was just the next opportunity to sabotage himself when he thought about it afterwards and reasoned it out. But he was able to figure out what he didn't want anymore, which was poverty. He had actually put himself in poverty. He was on the verge of having the government help him. He had a lot of friends helping him, just giving him money. And so he figured out what he didn't want. He didn't want poverty anymore. He figured out what he did want. What he did want was to live what he called a quote-unquote normal life, where he would have a home that he owned, he would have a car that he owned, and he would have groceries that he paid for. That's what he wanted. That was his big goal. And the challenge was that he lived in California, which, if you own a home in California, and he was in Santa Monica, that's $1 million right there. If you own a decent car in California and you want to kind of keep up with the neighbors, that's minimum of $30,000 right there. So his goals sound kind of basic, but they were a little lofty if you think about it. So he figured out what he didn't want poverty. He figured out what he did want, which was what he called a quote unquote normal life, and he asked for it. In this case, by programming his subconscious mind for success, he would ask for it every day. He would program himself every day, and I was able to make a recording for him to help him program himself. He started receiving it in terms of getting jobs. He started getting jobs, and what he was actually trained to do was film editing. He was a film editor. He started getting jobs doing that. He accepted the jobs, he accepted the money, and he was very thankful for that, and he would express his thanks by writing thank you letters, handwriting letters, which nobody does anymore. He would write handwritten letters saying, thank you for this opportunity to work for you. I really appreciate it. And he would give that to the boss, whoever hired him, or the company, or the head of the production team. This touched them so much, because everybody's so used to texts and emails, that they would refer him to the next person. Well, it didn't take long before he had more work than he could handle, started his own editing company, started hiring other people. Now his income per year is approximately $10 million. His personal income, not the company income. That's what he personally gets, $10 million per year. And all this guy wanted was a normal life. So now he has his house paid off, he has his cars paid off, and he's actually providing employment for other people.
So right there, that's the power of your mindset.
Yeah.
That is an incredible story.
Yeah, and it all had to do for him, for Bill, who I'm calling Bill, it all had to do with him getting very clear. This is one thing we went into during the session, getting very clear with why he was sabotaging himself. And the reason why is because he was running these old programs from his parents in his head that told him that rich people were no good. Once he got rid of that, he was clear for takeoff.
That's incredible, and I'm sure you come across a variety of different, unhealthy mindsets that block people. I had a similar one because I grew up in a wealthy area, but, my father liked to drive a station wagon, and we had a nice home, and we took nice vacations, but my father always loved the idea of, he didn't want to compete. He just wanted to be there. It was a beautiful place to live, but he didn't want to compete with anyone, so he decided to make himself quite the opposite. He was going to buy an older station wagon instead of a, nicer car, and, and the message always was, wealthy people are unhappy. That was my message. So when you have these messages, first of all, I think you need to discover what it is. What do you really think about wealth, if that's what you're looking for? Because I know success for everybody is very different. Success could just be, paying your bills. I met someone the other night, and she says, I have a job, and I play tennis, and, I'm just not looking to do much more, which for me was very interesting and not usually what I run into, in my circle. But I thought, gosh, she seems really happy with where she's at. And that's great. So everybody's idea of success is different. And if you're looking for wealth as part of your success, I guess, what would you recommend? Is it finding out what the mindset is, what you really believe about wealth, and maybe what those blocks are? Is that discovering where that comes from?
I think that's the key that unlocks the door, getting very clear with yourself. And you may wonder, well, how do I figure out what my blocks are? The way you do that is just by saying the first thing. You don't have to do it right now, but saying the first thing that comes to your mind about wealth and about wealthy people. And you can do this in a quiet place with the lights off, no one around you, no one possibly even hearing you, and just blurt out the things that come out when you think about wealth and wealthy people, and pay attention to them. You may think, oh, I said that, but that sounds ridiculous. I said, wealthy people are awful, but that sounds ridiculous. Well, that's really what you feel. If that's your gut reaction to that, then that's really what you feel, and you need to start from there. You need to start figuring out why you feel that way, and that's going to be, as I said, the key that unlocks the door, because you're going to be able to change that thinking around. But if you just go out and say, okay, I'll just make more money, I'll just get more accounts in whatever I do, that's not going to work any more than someone who has a vested interest in being overweight, any more than they're going to have success if they just say, I'm going to go on a diet. We all know what happens when people try diets or try anything. To try means to fail. So they set themselves up at this conscious level because they're thinking that that's where life happens. But life doesn't happen there. Life happens at an unconscious and emotional level. So you have to get to the emotions and the unconscious reasons that are driving the behavior.
It's so fascinating because I know it can be so frustrating for people, and it's just a vicious cycle. For this man, Bill, that you call him Bill, for him to regularly find reasons to dump out all the money from his, checking account to leave himself in a kind of stranded position financially is, it sounds crazy. And it sounds like it's a little bit of an extreme, but I'm sure we all have a little crazy in us, if that's what I'm going to call it. I know I have it. Maybe I'm alone, but...
all kinds of people, they get a little extra money and, they're off to Disney, or they're off to Europe, or they're off to here or there, or they're off to Vegas. And what happens there? Every last bit of that extra money goes away. And they think, well, how did that happen? Well, it's all part of the subconscious mind's program to keep them at a certain level where they feel comfortable. So they've got to figure out why they feel comfortable at such a low level.
Fascinating. It's so fascinating to me. So tell me a little bit about how you've helped your clients build entrepreneurial success. You shared that story. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with us?
I do. Luckily, I do. Since I was on, the TV show, The Millionaire Matchmaker, and everyone knows I'm a millionaire now. A lot of my clients, instead of all the weight loss clients and the smoking clients, I'm getting a lot of millionaire clients or people who want to be millionaires. And so I've recently the wealthy people and the people who want to be wealthy who I work with has increased quite a bit. So I have a lot of very recent stories I could share, but they're all pretty much along the same lines. There's access. They're intelligent people. They have access to wealth, meaning they're trained in something that they could promote. And we all know on the internet, whatever you're trained in, whatever you're good at, dog grooming or neurosurgery, whatever it is, you can write an ebook about it and sell it on the internet, and it's pretty easy to make money. So a lot of times they realize that they could just do what they do and do it bigger and better and make more money, but they're blocking themselves. They have a block. And so I always get to the root cause of that, and that's what I encourage everyone listening to do. You get to the root cause of it. Until you until you tease that out of your subconscious mind and isolate it, it doesn't mean you have to remove it right away, but until you isolate it, kind of get it in a test tube where you can look at it, you're not going to really be dealing with reality. You're not going to be really dealing with the actual stumbling block. And there are different ways to attack the stumbling block once you isolate it, but you have to isolate it first before you can hope to improve.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you kind of a wild card question because I know that there's different states that our mind is in, when we're awake, when we're, somewhat awake. There's probably a better term for that.
That's what we call it, somewhat awake.
Somewhat awake.
That's right.
Technical term.
Yes.
And then there's different mindsets when you're sleeping and that you're more susceptible to. I mean, they always say, don't fall asleep with the TV on and have that all night. And I always say, yeah, because you'll get up and you'll go buy things that you have no idea why you're buying them and they're on sale. Yep. But what is the point that your brain is most susceptible to change?
Well, it varies for everyone. Harvard and Stanford got together and created what they call the hypnotic scale of susceptibility, and I don't like that word. I like suggestibility, but they call it susceptibility. Susceptibility kind of sounds like you're being suckered into something when you're susceptible. It sounds like gullible, but that's the technical term, susceptibility. And we all fall into different numerical values on that scale. Until you take the test, you won't know how suggestible, let's use that word, I like it better, you are. So first of all, it depends on that, how suggestible you are to begin with. Second of all, it does depend on state, as you mentioned. Beta is full awakening consciousness, where we hopefully are now. Everyone's wide awake and paying attention. Such a fascinating talk. And alpha is where you're not really awake, you're not really asleep. You can drive somewhere in alpha and not remember the drive. When you're just waking up or just going to sleep, you're in alpha. When you're reading a book, if at any time this talk became boring, which I can't imagine that happening, but if it did, then you could go into alpha. You could kind of start to daydream a little bit. If you go deeper than that, you go into theta, which is a very deep state. At that point, we are highly suggestible. Anything alpha or below, we're suggestible, but we become even more suggestible in theta. That's like when you see people on stage doing stage hypnosis. They're usually in a theta state, at least ideally they are. And when we're completely asleep, that's a delta state. We're completely out of it, probably snoring. We are in a delta state. So those are the four main states of consciousness, but realize that we can be in the lightest state, which is alpha, which is a hypnotic state where we are more suggestible. We can be there without even knowing about it, because we're just daydreaming or reading a book or spacing out a little bit, maybe just getting up, taking a shower, vacuuming, anything we can do without really thinking about it. We can go into alpha without realizing it.
Oh, okay. So this kind of explains a lot. Is this why I get some really incredible business ideas while I'm in the shower? Because I'm just in this state of, how many showers has everyone taken in their lives? We do it, every day.
At least once a month. That's right.
At least once a month.
Oh, yes. That's what I meant to say. Every day. Yes.
Every day.
Right.
So that could be potentially, you'd be in an alpha state.
Yes, anytime you do something mindless like that where you don't really need to focus, because once we reach a certain age, we've washed our bodies countless times, so we can do it without even thinking about it. So that's the key to going in alpha. When you're doing something that you don't really need to think a lot about, just like driving to work or vacuuming carpet or reading a book or anything that just you're used to doing. And so, yeah, that does explain why you get a lot of great ideas in the shower. It happens to me. In fact, I started keeping a tape recorder, not a tape recorder, but a digital recorder near the shower, because so many times I go in the shower and I start to drift into the alpha state. I get very tuned in with my subconscious mind. I have access there because I'm not completely out of it. I'm still conscious, but I'm still at the same time able to tap into my subconscious mind. That's the beauty of alpha. And so I can reach in there without even trying, without even realizing it, get a great idea for something, and I know that I need to capture it soon before the next idea comes around, and I lose that one for a while, or lose it permanently back in the depths of my subconscious mind. So yes, that does explain why people get great ideas when they're driving or showering or just waking up or just going to sleep. We get these fantastic, wonderful ideas. I was watching a show last night about George Harrison. Martin Scorsese made a movie about George Harrison. I forget the name of it, but I was watching it last night, and George Harrison was talking about that. He was brushing his teeth or something, and he got an idea for a song, and he put it down, and it turned out to be a big hit. And it's just something that came to him then. Why would it come to him then, as opposed to when he's fully engaged in something? Because when we do mindless things, yes, we have access to our subconscious minds.
Okay, that explains a lot. I was wondering if it was the soap I was using or...
That could be it.
No, what was
kind of aromatherapy situation, that could be it.
Right.
Safeguard, I think that's the key.
Right. So my final question for now is, you are a successful entrepreneur. What helped you get to where you are? I mean, you've shared a lot of this. Maybe it's what you've shared already.
Well, basically what helped me get to where I am is believing despite myself and despite others. And I don't think that any of my friends at any point have ever purposely sabotaged me or my thinking, but they have unknowingly attempted to do so, because what happens is we have friends at a certain level. They're making a certain level of money, living in a certain area, what have you, and you're their friend, and you being the hypothetical person, you. And if you start to show signs of being more successful, maybe I'm going to do this or that, or I'm going to move here or there, I've got this great opportunity, they can, at a subconscious level, start throwing out things designed to hold you back. Why? Because it would be a loss for them to lose you. They want to have you around. They love you, they like you, they enjoy your company, but at some level, subconsciously, they start throwing out these little things that put doubt in your mind that keep you where you are. We also do that ourselves. We can talk ourselves out of great ideas by thinking, oh, that's ridiculous. We can mathematically talk ourselves out of things. We can add up all the numbers. And what we're not factoring in is the fact that once we start rolling with this thing, other people are going to join in and probably contribute time and energy and money and make this work out. That doesn't show up on paper when our logical brain is figuring out why something won't work. So my main trick has been to get over what my friends are saying and get over the little chit-chat in my head that says, no, you can't do this, and to just take actionable steps. I like a to-do list has probably been my biggest ally. Every week I have things to do which have to do with getting things done. Even if you don't believe anything, as long as you're taking the right steps consistently, you're going to get there. Even if you don't believe in the next neighborhood, as long as you're walking toward it, you're going to get there, whether you believe in it or not. So the trick is to get yourself to keep moving forward, ! And when you do that, you always arrive there. But that has to do with kind of like being a horse with blinders, focusing on the goal consistently to the exclusion of the chit-chat in your own head and the subtle things that other people say.
Fabulous. That is so important. Everything that you've been saying is really, really helpful. I think that our listeners are really going to have some tools now where they can go and find out what they can do for themselves. And I want to remind our listeners that you can get your copy of the Ship Success Kit. If you're online, you can. There's a little button to the left of your screen you can click on, and you can also find the link in your daily call reminders. And this way, you have a short time to take advantage of the special price for all of the recordings. You can download them from the series. We've had incredible experts, and they become yours. You can reference them again and again because the information that's being shared is pretty timeless. And I know that, mindset is really crucial, and I find myself saying that on all these calls. So if you're looking to do that, that's where you can find it. So, Steve, where can we learn more about you and connect with you?
The best place would be my website, which is just my name, stevegjones.com. That has a link to my YouTube videos, my Facebook fan page, and LinkedIn, and all that good stuff. So it's just my name, stevegjones.com.
Fantastic. And I want to say also that, Steve has so many incredible hypnotherapy CDs, and I'm always teasing him about making up combos. I mean, he's got something for everything. It's really incredible. But I always think, snakes on a plane, fear of snakes and fear of flying, you could somehow make that into one or something. I don't know.
Who is that who starred in that movie? That's
I did not see it. I don't like snakes.
Okay, I think he was in Pulp Fiction, too. His name's escaping me right now, but if I could get him to do a commercial for me, that would be awesome.
There we go, yeah.
But, I've got recordings for I cover about 230 topics, fear of snakes, fear of flying, fear of success, fear of failure, confidence, motivation, everything. And the way I got that many titles was just by listening to what people wanted. And they would say, do you have a recording on this? And I would say, no, but I will next week. And I would put it on my to-do list, and I would make a recording for that to help them.
Right. Fantastic.
So now they're available on the website.
Perfect. So I'm going to ask the series signature questions. The first one, if there was just one thing an entrepreneur could begin doing now, what would that be to help with their mindset?
Well, I would say as I mentioned previously, the first step would be to figure out what you don't want. That would be the first thing, and I'd also tie that to the second step, which is figure out what you do want. And that may sound really simple and trite and so forth, but it's really important. A lot of entrepreneurs haven't done it. And what happens as an entrepreneur when you don't do it is you end up going into something for just the money. And I've seen this happen. I've seen people do things that they don't really believe in, that they don't really want, that they don't really care about, just for the money. And this happens all the time. I see it in Internet marketing a lot. I see people getting into Internet marketing who are just selling things just to make money. They don't believe in the self-help industry. They don't believe in anything that they're selling. They're just finding an item that they think they could push out to the people and make a lot of money at it. So you and I both know that we're into what we do and we believe in it from our heart, but there are a lot of people who don't go through that step. They don't figure out what they don't want. And then what they do want, what they really probably do want is to make money, for example. People who fall into that category, in which case, they should be talking about things that they make money and being honest with themselves. So finding out those two things, I wrap that all up into one, but those things are so closely related that I would do them both together, figuring out what you don't want and figuring out what you do want.
Well, like you said, they're simple, but they're powerful, and people don't do them.
Right.
Which makes them even more powerful.
Yeah, and that's what leads people to become dentists when they don't want to be dentists. That's what leads people to do what their parents say and to forget about their artist self because they don't think it's going to work out. And that's what leads people down the wrong path by failing to do those first two steps.
Okay, and bottom line, what makes understanding your mindset so important to entrepreneurial success?
Well, you need to understand it because without understanding it, you may stumble at some point and potentially fail if you don't understand how important it is. If you think that, you meaning you in general, if you think that life is just a series of steps and just a to-do list, and you start doing them, you may find that you don't want to do the thing on the to-do list tomorrow. And the reason is because you're walking down a path that you don't believe in or you're not excited about it. It doesn't juice you up anymore, and you're not going to follow through with it. So this can be extremely important, and without it, without realizing how important the underpinning part is, the emotional and the subconscious part of everything you do, without paying attention to that and honoring that, things just will not work out long term. And as long as you are on that path and are honoring it, then things will work out better than you ever imagined.
Well, Steve, I can't thank you enough for all your expertise, and I'm so glad you picked up that book when you were just a boy.
Who knows what would have happened if I didn't pick up that book on hypnosis in high school.
That's right. This is amazing. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your expertise. This has been a phenomenal call.
Oh, my pleasure, Keri. Thanks for putting this together.
Awesome. I'm Keri Newell, and here's to your success.